Jim and I couldn't decide this weekend if we wanted to tour a distillery or another brewery. So I'll tell you what, we did both. Welcome y'all to Lexington Brewing and Distilling Company, home of Town Branch Bourbon and Kentucky Ale beers. Of course we got there early so we could scope out the place, get some good pics and video, and the visitor center didn't disappoint. To start off with, it looked like what I picture an Irish street to look like. And we found out that the names above the storefronts are names of the friends to the Lyons family who own Lexington Brewing. As we walked around, it was so amazing just to see all the history that they had displayed there. I have to tell you, if you would have told me growing up that I would have enjoyed learning history as much as I do now, I would have told you you were crazy. I guess my history teacher, Mr. Kavanaugh, would be extremely proud of me right now. Anyway, one of the coolest things we saw was the guitar that was made from a Town Branch bourbon barrel head. And for all my musician friends out there, don't be hating on it now. Since we got there so early, they bumped us up to the 1:30 tour. Our original tour was at 2 o'clock, and we got to meet with Dan. Hey everybody, meet Dan. Dan had so much knowledge, he was really laid back, and had a great sense of humor as well. I really learned a lot while I was on this tour. Just a few tidbits to share with you guys. The brewery was purchased in 1999 by Pearse Lyons. They do own 2 other distilleries, one in Kentucky and one in Ireland. They have 7 beers and 14 whiskeys that you can try while you're on the tour, and that means lots of options to taste. And we only had 4 tokens, so there were going to be some tough choices that we really need to make. The stonemasons that did some of the work out on the property left what Dan called Easter eggs around in the stonework. Here are 2 of the 3 that we found. The first building that we stopped at was where it all starts. The grains for the distilling get unloaded here. They're sent over to the distillery, and in this building is where the beer started. Flavors are added and the fermenting's done. The building we were in may seem kind of small with only 3 fermenters that we were able to see, but Dan assured us that there were 6 more behind the big brick wall, and that means a lot of beer. Speaking of beer, tasting was the next on the tour of the beer. That's kind of unusual for us. We're used to having all the tasting at the end, but hey, who am I to argue? Now, here's where some of the big decisions were going to need to be made. Only 4 tokens and over 20 possible beers and whiskeys to taste. Had to be careful with those tokens. So, what did we decide? Well, Jim ended up getting the tangerine and the vanilla. And one thing we found is when you mix the 2 together, they make a great dreamsicle. Dan put us onto that one. I, of course, got the old-fashioned, and then what we did, smart on our part, is we tasted each other's. So you know what? We got 6 tastes for the price of 3. Not too shabby, huh? The next stop on the tour was the distillery, and the only things that aren't made here are the gins. Those are made at the Irish distillery. Lots of history we were told in this building as well. Things like how many stays are actually in a bourbon barrel, why it's called bourbon to begin with, and how many barrels you can have and have it still considered to be a small batch bourbon. But I'm not going to give you any of those hints. You're going to have to go on the tour and hear it for yourself. All distilleries have their fermenting barrels, and they also have copper stills. And Lexington Brewing copper stills were magnificent. Check out these beauties. And now, on to the whiskey tasting. Oh man, 14 options to be exact, but only 3 tokens left for me and 2 for Jim. This is going to be a little tough to narrow it down. And after looking at all my options and weighing them heavily, oh yeah, not really, come on guys. I decided to go ahead and try a rhubarb gin. It was really good. I did have one of the other tourists ask me if it tasted ginny, and I told her I don't know what gin normally tastes like, so I couldn't really answer that question, but I thought it was delicious. My second option, of course, was one of the bourbons, and it was amazing. You've got to drink the bourbon when you're at a Kentucky distillery. It's a must. Jim, of course, also tried one of the bourbons, and he tried a rye, and he said both were good. However, our favorite was something called the Bluegrass Sundown. It's a beautiful and delicious spin-off of Irish coffee, but with a Kentucky twist. It's a dark roasted coffee liqueur infused with Town Branch Bourbon. Add a little hot water and top it with cream. Oh my word, y'all, it was so good. So, of course, we had to buy a bottle, along with the tempered glasses that go with it, and they show all the lines so you can measure everything just as you need it. We went ahead and stopped back through the visitor center to pick up our goodies. The Bluegrass Sundown with the glasses, picked up a 4-pack of Bourbanola, and then our engraved bottle of Town Branch Bourbon. This is beautiful. All in all, it was a fantastic tour. Thanks, Dan, for an outstanding tour and some great laughs. We'll see you all down the road on our next trip.